You're listening to Aging Today, the podcast where together we explore the options to aging on your terms.
When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I've been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
And now the podcast where together we discuss proactive aging on your terms, connecting to the professional advice of our special guests while creating better days throughout the aging process. Now here's your host, Mark Turnbull.
Welcome to our podcast, Aging Today. This is the podcast where together we do explore the many options to aging on your terms. But before we begin today's show, I do want to thank our show sponsor, Comfort Care Home Care of West Linn, Oregon. The caregivers of Comfort Care support seniors and their desire to remain independent in their own homes. Comfort Care is helping you to live your best life possible. Well, we are very excited to have our guests on today. Her name is Erin McCune. Erin, welcome to Aging Today.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we have a lot of fun on this show. I get to meet some really interesting people, and I'm anticipating that you're going to be just as interesting as everybody else that's been on this show.
But no pressure.
No pressure at all.
All right.
No pressure at all. So tell us a little bit about your background and what you've done in your life that prepared you to launch a company that is about digital estate planning, because that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. I have had a very diverse background. My degree, believe it or not, is in microbiology from Reed College. My thesis was on cloning a little tiny piece of the end of frog DNA, which ironically, I was working on telomeres, which are, as you may know,
yeah, I've heard about those,
closely linked to aging. So I guess there was a link from the start.
And you got to keep those long, right?
You do, yeah. So we were looking at what were the sequences right next to the telomeres, and what potentially was what turned on and off telomerase, which is what keeps those long. But that was a number of years ago, and then
that is just like, how did you go from there to what you're doing now, more digital?
Yeah.
So let's tell more of the story, though.
Sure. So I loved genetics. I loved doing all of that. But as you may also know, working in a lab doesn't pay very well, and Reed College was very expensive. So when I got out, it wasn't really any way to reconcile those two things. So I thought, okay, I'll go be a pharmaceutical sales rep. Because then, it's biology, but I also like people. I'll go sell. And of course, no one wanted to hire me because I didn't have experience. So I wound up in technology sales for about 15 years. I worked at Integra Telecom for about 9 years, and then transitioned to a startup here in Portland for the last 7 years that did e-learning called Open Sesame, and was in partnerships and strategic, leadership, strategic partnerships and sales. But it was really more on the personal side that then caused me and my co-founder to start Easeenet.
Yeah. And so you kind of dabbled, you'd taken that microbiology as a stepping stone, and you did some sales.
Yes.
And it was more medical sales related, correct?
No, I never really got into medical sales. Okay. I pretty much jumped right into telecom. So it was, providing your internet circuit. I know it was completely divergent. There was no.
Because I know a lot of people that, got their biology degrees and masters and doctorates and never really practiced, but they usually went to go to work for a larger company, a pharmaceutical, whatever, and then made a boatload of money selling. And but that's That's not your path.
That was not my path. No, but I'm happy with the path that I took.
Yeah.
Telecom is I like solving problems, and I like creating efficient and optimized solutions. And truthfully, I think I've been able to do that much better in my career that I did do than if I were to go peddle pharmaceuticals.
So we're really big on story here.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own story. You're a book. I'm a book.
Yep.
We're writing our own chapter.
Absolutely.
You're the author. You're the holder of your own pen. And what an interesting story. Do you see any patterns in your life that, from childhood to where you are today, that you see a common thread, that red thread that runs throughout your life?
Yeah. I've done a number of explorations in that, workshops, those kinds of things over my life. And really what it's come down to is I've always been about creating the optimal experience. My affectionate nickname for myself is I'm a Zen-tertainer, because, it combines that Zen, that, the absolute best, not necessarily the most expensive or the most, it's what's the exact right thing, the exact optimized experience for you personally.
Yeah.
So I'm the person that people come to when they need a tool, or they need a dinner reservation recommendation, or they need just how to solve a problem. Because that's the way my brain works. Mm-hmm. I've always taken in a lot of information and then synthesized it and simmered it down very quickly, and been able to create that Zen-tertainer outcome.
I love that. That's a great new term.
Thank you.
I'm going to use that.
All right.
Okay. With your permission, of course.
Of course.
So, one of the things that I admire about most people is the diversity of experiences in life. And that's what makes us so interesting.
That's true.
And, if you're pretty monologue in your life, if that's the right word, that'd be, the different generation. My parents' generation, they were more mono.
Yeah. There was sort of this monotone element to their life, and it
one company got the gold watch, not the silver watch. I'd probably get the silver watch.
Yeah.
But and yet those days are pretty much done.
It is.
And which is good, I think, for us as human beings to just get into a rut and a routine, and it sounds like you've had a pretty diverse life so far.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's true for all of us.
Right.
And one of the best ways to grow and develop and learn new things is to go and try new things.
Would you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what really gets the juices flowing.
Absolutely. I love building new things. I love helping people find their highest success, because that's right in line with that Zen-tertainer. I want to help people find their highest good. Yeah. And being able to build new things and create the best possible experiences is
Were you
exciting.
that way as a child? Were you creating things?
Absolutely. So I grew up on almost 50 acres over, back in when Tigard actually had that space. Now there's a Walmart and there's a Costco and all those things right there.
Yeah.
But my best friend and I would go out in the morning and we would create entire houses in the grass that was taller than we were. We'd tamp down and we'd have our little rooms and we'd have our door and, go out and explore new things every day. And it was, it's all about, and then friends would come over and you want to find the thing that they're going to be most passionate about. And so one day I remember we spent the entire day picking the heads off of, I forget what kind of flower, Queen Anne's lace.
Oh, yeah.
And we made this whole bed of Queen Anne's lace.
Those are the white.
The big white, fluffy, they look like lace kind of, and then they have the little red right in the middle. And it was probably
tall
8 feet by 3 feet that we made this entire bed of Queen Anne's lace heads because, she loved them. And we made this soft gorgeous, beautiful place for her to sit in the afternoon. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I find that to be common amongst entrepreneurs. Myself, I would include myself into that, always exploring, trying new things.
Yeah.
And inventing, reinventing.
What's one of your favorite stories that you maybe haven't told on the podcast?
Well, I think one of the things that I've always been attracted to is innovation, new ways of doing things. So I was an athlete, and so my high school coaches, they reinvented the game of football with a passing game. So it was called the run and shoot. And we ran the run and shoot. And that trickled up from high school to the college ranks and to the professional ranks.
Wow.
To this day.
Wow.
Where, football used to be about, smash mouth football, run up the middle of the line of scrimmage, with a fullback and a tailback, and then in the 70s when the run and shoot was introduced through Mouse Davis, Hillsborough High School, and he really reinvented the game and opened the field up. So I've always been involved with that, rethinking the way something is done.
Yeah.
And then I've also have done. I was a pastor at one time, so I did church work, but I wasn't into the traditional church. I was more into progressive church. And so we rethought and presented Christ in a different way than the traditional church would, through stained glass windows, etc.
Yeah.
Traditional. So I've always been a non-traditionalist.
Well, I mean, it sounds like kind of
but
like
that's
me.
entrepreneur.
It's like you're trying to find a better way to do something, a way that's either more inclusive or that is going to allow things to progress faster and further in the football example, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. That's exactly what entrepreneurship is all about. Is okay, how do we maybe not even build a better mousetrap, but reinvent the mousetrap altogether? And
Yeah. Well, and essentially that's what you've done with your new project.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us about talking about adventures.
Yes.
You're on a new one.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your new adventure. The title of this show is Remember What Matters, Easy Digital Estate Planning. So that gives our listening audience a little bit of a clue to where you're going to go. And you talk about going from traditional to non-traditional. You're doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's already happening to a certain degree. It's just people aren't organizing it. And so they're literally getting locked out of their memories and their, but yes, we are.
Estate planning traditionally has been done in the confines of an attorney firm and locked up in their vaults and whatever they do with all the estates. But now you're making that more available to the clients.
Absolutely. So Easeenet is...
and that's the name of your company.
Easeenet, yes.
Easeenet. Okay.
EASEENET, because we make your life easy to see. So that's where the name came from. And Easeenet is designed to organize and preserve all of your online life. So you can kind of think of it like an operations center for your life. But you go back 20 years and you look at the way, if someone were to pass away or they were suddenly incapacitated, you could find everything. It was still physical. It was still, there was mail that came in the mailbox. You could find the bills. You could go to the physical filing cabinet and you could open it up and there's going to be all the papers, all the things that you need. But today, that's not the case anymore. The good thing is we have virtually every piece of information ever created at our fingertips. But the hard part is so much of our lives digitized, and so it's invisible effectively. You get your bills via email instead of in your mailbox in many cases. most of us have more files online than we have in our office.
Yeah. So was there an event in your life that caused you to start a company like this? And then it sounds like you got a partner,
a co-faunder. Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What caused all this? What was the impetus? Because I think our listening audience would be very interested, because ideas are created out of whatever happens around us.
It's so true.
Yeah. So tell us.
It's
the
a story of our lives. It's a book of our lives. And when you look back, you're like, oh, if I would have done that differently, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I unfortunately had to take over 3 relatives' estates by the time I was 30. The first one being when I was 24, and my father-in-law had a stage 4 aneurysm. And if you're not familiar with the scale, a stage 1 is like the worst headache you've ever had, and stage 5 is instant death. And he was a stage 4. So they, rushed him to the hospital. They were going to do brain surgery, but they gave him like a 20% chance of survival. And he did wake up the next day, which was great. But if you've ever seen the movie 50 First Dates, there's a character called 10-Second Tom who has this 10-second memory. And that was basically his dad. So he woke up the next day, and I was, as it happened, I wound up being in the hospital room with him for 4 hours all by myself. And we repeated the same 10 seconds over and over and over again. He'd go to sit up in his hospital bed, and I'd be like, hey, Dad, what do you need? I have to pee. And I'm like, you have a catheter in. He's like, no, I don't. I'm like, yeah, you do. He's like, and whoosh, and he lifts off the blankets because he wants to see for himself. And now I'm seeing way more of Dad than I ever wanted to see, right? And he looks down. He's like, oh, I do. And, then he'd fold the blanket back and sit back. Mm-hmm. But then he'd go to sit right back up again. And I'd be like, Dad, what do you need? He's like, I have to pee. No, Dad, you have a catheter in. No, I don't. Whoosh, right? Over and over. And, so his capacity to handle anything was gone, right?
Yeah.
And didn't come back for a very long time. He was the sole caretaker at the time for his 88-year-old mother. So in one instant, my husband and I went from, as we all are in our mid-20s, not necessarily the most responsible, not necessarily, who wants to take all that on? And suddenly this is all on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And then when I was 30, my father passed away suddenly, and of course didn't have anything organized. And similarly, Andrew, my co-founder, his dad went in because he wasn't feeling well and was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And a family member actually came and tried to take him out of the hospital while he was there. And because they couldn't find the power of attorney that said that Andrew was supposed to be in charge, finally someone called him, but then he had to drop everything and rush over. So it was just, for both of us, we both have this history of having to take over these estates and knowing the weight and all of the challenges that come with that. And then about 3 years ago, I watched my mom have to go through it with her mom and her dad within the same year. It's almost like being one step removed from the awfulness made it easier to see how awful it was, because you're not slogging through it yourself. I mean, if you've ever have you ever had to go through taking over an estate, Mark?
No.
Oh.
I am the executor, co-executor on my mom and dad's, and they're 91, but hopefully they're going to be around for a little while.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope for everyone's sake that's that's true, and that they stay healthy.
Good and long life.
It is a good and long life, but man, it's brutal to have to take over the weight of someone else's entire life, right? Every piece of adulting that you have to do today, right now, is going to go to someone else. And so, going back to that need for me to be that entertainer, right? And optimize experience, I watched my mom go through this, and I'm like, Oh yeah, I've done that. That's awful. There's got to be a better way to put this information all together and serve it up and make it super simple, not just for the person that is taking it over, but even also for the person that has to put it all together in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. So you and your co-founder, your dad was your impetus behind this idea. It got you inspired.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about what you and your partner have created.
Yeah. So what we've built is a unified platform. And again, you can kind of think of it like a operation center for your life. So it has a simple, secure password manager designed for non-techie users, right? So for people that aren't super comfy with technology. And then we've paired that with document storage and sharing, with journaling, and a worksheet to capture the critical life details that people forget to pass on. So it's really pulling together a lot of disparate pieces into a single, very, very easy to use platform that can be seamlessly handed off to your loved ones if anything happens.
So it's like a dashboard.
Yes.
And then who puts it's garbage in, garbage out, right?
Right. That is true.
Okay, so who's putting the garbage in? Is that the attorneys?
So essentially, the password manager piece is it's almost like a set it and forget it. So you install a very small piece of helper software called a browser extension on your internet browser, and anytime you put in your username and password, it's just going to automatically pop up and say, "Hey, Mark, do you want to save this? And if you do, where do you want to categorize it?" So that it creates this organized, categorized dashboard, to your point, of everywhere you've been online. As far as the documents, we don't create your will or your power of attorney or anything like that. We leave that to the professionals. But yeah, you can either import it yourself, or if your attorney has an Easeenet account, they can just share it directly to yours.
So is this like the cloud?
Yeah.
This is a filing
in
cabinet
Yep.
in the cloud that has what, my name on it, or
Yeah.
How is it identified? So it's Easeenet, right? Is the name of the company.
Yes.
Is it my Easeenet? Mark Turnbull, or
Yeah.
how do you identify this in the cloud?
So when you effectively you log in and you have your dashboard, and then you predetermine who your legacy contacts are. And so who's going to receive this if anything happens to you. And so they'll have their...
So paint us a picture.
Yes.
So what does the dashboard look like? And is that the right word?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the perfect word.
Yeah.
So on the front page of your dashboard is really categories. Like there's tiles for every category of places that you go online. So there's a health tile for all of your doctors and your health insurance and all the pieces that relate to health.
So this is an active cloud manager dashboard for everything in my life. And it's something that I don't put, garbage in, or all the documents, right, of my life, and then come back to it when I'm about ready to die.
Correct. The idea is this is a daily use. Oh, it's just automatically kind of in the flow of your life, so that it doesn't become, because for so many people, they feel like this is kind of like cleaning the garage, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's important, that needs to be done, that you're going to feel better when it's done, but nobody wants to tackle it, right? They don't want to take this huge amount of time. And to your point, right, you don't want it to get out of date. You don't want it to be something where you put the information in and then don't look at it for 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, right? You want it to be something where it's constantly up to date, because you never know when something's going to happen.
Well, so let's just take medical information. So now I've got an account. What's it called? My Health, or
Legacy My Health? Is that?
Yeah, it's Providence.
Oh, Providence, sure.
Whatever. I don't know. I'm supposed to go on there, and it's another password I got to remember.
Yes.
Right? So, but it actually is. It's every doctor visit is in there. Every surgery, all your medicines, and all that kind of stuff are in there. It's kind of cool. So, is that something that I would upload into the Easeenet dashboard?
So, more importantly, you wouldn't even need to actively upload anything. When you go to log in the next time, because you have your Easeenet browser extension installed, when you put in your username and password, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, hey, Mark, do you want to save this? You're like, yeah, I do. Yeah. and you save it in your health folder. You give it a name that's clear, right? You know, whether you name it My Health or whatever, so that your loved ones could identify and be able. But if they have to come in behind you, they can click on Health and My Health, and it's going to take them right to that login page and autofill your username and password so that they can get in and see exactly that same information that you're talking about.
And it stores multiple passwords.
It stores as many as you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
the average person is over 200 now.
Yeah, because I use a product called LastPass to keep track of all my passwords because they're always, somebody's always saying, oh, okay, this is no longer usable. You got to add another figure or character on there, and I'm going, really? But I totally get it.
Yeah. So we're like LastPass plus a digital vault in a single platform.
Okay.
So that your loved ones really have this all-in-one dashboard for everything. And, you know, while LastPass does have the ability to categorize if you choose to, it's certainly not set up to be intuitive. It's certainly not kind of core functionality of their product. They're really, you know, hey, we'll store your stuff and then we'll serve it back to you when you come back to the site later. Where we really recognize there was a need is in putting things in categories so that when someone does have to take over your online life, they can prioritize what they need to look at first. They can ignore the shopping category because they probably don't need to buy anything for you there. Right. They can ignore your Netflix account and the media file, right? But they can focus on your banking and finance and your health and your home accounts, whatever they need to work on first.
Yeah. What are all the categories?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. Home, banking and finance, shopping, health, media, work, travel. I think I might be missing one. But you can also create subcategories, as many as you want.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then the cool part is all of your legal documents go in there as well.
Exactly.
Now, who do you sell this to? Do you sell it to me, the end user? Do you sell it to attorneys and doctors that then get them on board and so that they can pass that on to their clients? How do you guys approach this?
It's a blend. We do have a number of clients that just buy from us directly from our website. We do have a growing number of estate planning attorneys and financial advisors that, you know, in that same process, when you're doing your will, they're like, hey, this is another piece you have to figure out. Here's a tool you can use. And you know, any piece of that pre-planning moment, those pre-planning moments in your life are points where we have partnerships and where we are helping people get started with this, because it is new. You know, I mean, that's the whole thing. Digital estate planning, when your listeners first hear the term digital estate planning, they're probably like, what?
It's a descriptive term, though.
It is.
You don't have to guess. Okay, what are you about?
Well,
digital estate planning.
So many people don't realize how much is in your digital estate.
Yeah.
Right? You think about, oh, okay, I have cryptocurrency, maybe, right? Or, oh, I might have my social media accounts, but maybe I don't care about those. But people don't think about how much of what used to be traditional assets are now digital assets. You know, your mortgage is most likely has a online username and password. You know, your health records, just like you said, right? Things that historically would not necessarily have been what you would think of as digital assets. But, you know, then there's also credit card points and airline miles and, you know, all the different pieces that make up your digital estate today.
What about security?
What about security? No, I'm just kidding. We took a long time getting to market because that was absolutely at our core.
Yeah.
One of the things that was most important to us was making sure that everything was fully encrypted at the highest level, end to end. So that means even when your data is at rest, no one's touching it, it's, you know, safe and secure on the server, it's still fully encrypted. And then we couple that with two-factor authentication. We send you emails if there's ever a, login from an unrecognized device. We also have codes, basically an extra lock that attaches to your password to really bind to it and make sure it can't ever be changed. And then our team has no access to any of it. We can tell you how to get into your stuff, but we have no visibility whatsoever to any of your information.
So there's one password to get into the cloud or in.
Yeah, much like your LastPass, one password, the one ring to rule them all, right? You have your one password to get into Easeenet. But the nice part is you don't have to share that even with your loved ones, because we have that legacy contact functionality. So they'll actually request access from their own account. They don't have to pay for it, right? They can have a free account. It's all good. But you don't have to give them access before you're ready.
Okay. And then what about who benefits the most from this?
The kids. I mean, let's face it, right? This like most estate planning.
But how do I leave the password to them just like you would in any other document, a physical document? Or how do they get the password to get in there after I'm gone?
So you designate them as a legacy contact. And so they can set up a free account on Easeenet, and then they'll go into their account. They'll see in the legacy contact section that they are a legacy contact for Mark.
Okay. And so after I'm gone, it opens itself up to them?
There's a request button that they'll have in their account. And when they click that request access button, it's going to send you a message. And it's going to say, hey, Mark.
But I'm dead.
Right. But okay. let's say they requested it before you were dead.
Okay.
Right? And it's going to send you a message and say,
so
hey,
you want to give it
if you don't want them to have access, click here. So you have the ability, you have that authority to lock someone out if you're still alive and kicking, and most likely you're going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, what are you doing? But if in your example you were dead, right, then they quick request, you get to choose what the timeout period is. It can be anywhere from immediate to 30 days.
Okay.
And then once that timeout period expires, then they would have access to the information.
Yeah. And all of your legal documents would go in here.
Exactly.
Advanced directives, pulsed.
Yep. And there's a worksheet in there to designate where the originals are, right? Because there's still a very valid reason to have the original paper copies, especially for wills and certain legal documents. But it's also very handy to have a copy at your fingertips when you're sitting in a hospital waiting room.
Yeah. So how do they get into the rooms or into the folders, the documents? So do I email them to an account and then...
It's just a one-click upload. So from your dashboard, in your documents, you just click on upload, select your document, select what folder it goes into, and it goes right in. You can add notes to your passwords, to your documents, right? Anything that someone would need to know about your wishes for those documents, or where it needs to go, or where the originals are, or anything like that.
You're listening to Aging Today with Mark Turnbull and his guest, Erin McCune. Erin is co-founder and CEO of Easeenet Digital Estate Planning. We'll pause here and continue our conversation in just a moment.
Sometimes I'd like to smack old age right in the kisser. Ow!
Oh yeah, still got those moves.
I will be fabulous.
Comfort Care can help with as much or as little home care as you need. From medication reminders and meal prep to everyday chores and errands. Let us create your personalized care plan and find the perfect caregiver match so you can live your best life possible.
Call Comfort Care at 503-636-0417.
A Did You Know moment from Comfort Care Home Care of West Lynn.
Did you know the average American spends 11 hours per year resetting passwords and has 37 password reset emails in their inbox? Also, people report having over $50,000 in digital assets on average, and it takes 570 hours to settle an estate on average. Digital estate planning is an area where it's particularly critical to be proactive, not reactive. By the time many families realize just how imperative it is, it's already too late, and they're locked out of assets and treasured memories. It's easy to put off, since no one likes thinking about their own mortality, but it's a critical piece of life planning. This Did You Know moment is brought to you by Comfort Care Home Care of West Lynn. Call today, 503-636-0417.
We'll pick up our conversation with Mark Turnbull and his guest Erin McCune of Easeenet Digital Estate Planning. Now here's more with Mark and Erin on Aging Today.
So then, does it also have a vault for all my passwords? So is that one of the folders also? Kind of like LastPass, but it's or other products like that. Excuse me for promoting.
That's okay.
them.
It's all good.
I'm a one-trick
I
pony.
have nothing against LastPass. I really don't.
But you would store them in this folder, right? In Easeenet.
Your passwords will automatically go into your dashboard based on the category that you put them in.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And so we designed it such that for people whose functionality is maybe starting to decline a little bit, it can be their homepage. It can be a safe, easy way for them to navigate the internet. One of my friends affectionately refers to it as the internet with guardrails for her mom, because, her mom has started to decrease in functionality. So she helped her set up her Easeenet account. And now her mom knows that she can click through and go right to the site she wants to. She's not going to wind up on a spam site or a scam site or accidentally click on the wrong thing. It's going to take her right to the correct page and get her where she's going.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's kind of like bumper bowling, you can't.
Exactly.
You can't lose.
Right?
Gotcha.
I don't know. I will confess I've gone bumper bowling and managed to get no pins on a.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I know. It's a special talent.
Well,
you have to get it where the ball is just riding the rail all the way to the end.
yeah.
And then
It just kind of just rolls down.
yeah.
And you don't get a pin.
And you don't get a pin.
All
Yeah.
right.
Bowling is not my game.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of can relate to that as well.
Yeah.
It's my ADD sets in real fast when I'm bowling. I'm good for maybe a few frames and
Yeah.
that's it.
I'm good at cheering other people on.
Yeah.
So I'll go bowling and, grab a beer and
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Mark, good job.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so what are some of the downsides of using, like Chrome or Keychain or LastPass or whatever else is out there to keep track of our passwords and the strengths of what you guys bring?
Sure. So when you look at Google, their Google Pass, the Chrome Pass, or Keychain, the reality is a lot of people mix and match devices, right? They may use Google Chrome for their browser on their laptop, but they'll, then go and use their iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And it ultimately what I see a lot is what I affectionately refer to as password spaghetti, where you have some passwords saved over here and some passwords saved over there and some passwords saved over there. And the next thing you know, there's no single record of truth. So some passwords are going to be right, some passwords are going to be wrong, and then you're still stuck with that same frustration of, oh, your password's, wrong. And you're like, but no, I saved it. And then also just Chrome Pass in particular has a history of not being particularly secure. And then for Keychain, Apple has just announced their new digital legacy feature that's coming out in the fall, where you can take your iCloud and you can say, okay, I, Mark, I'm going to pass it to my wife or whoever else, right? But Keychain access is not included in that. So trying to make sure that someone can get access to what they need.
So the big boys are
critical
starting to
piece.
recognize this need as well.
They are.
And you're just one step ahead of them.
I think that for the big password managers, so the LastPasses of the world and the 1Passwords, right? Their focus the last few years has really been more on the enterprise level, helping businesses organize and when someone leaves, making sure that you can pull back their passwords, that kind of thing. So our focus is really on narrowing in on the people who are just the busy everyday, running around trying to get done what they need to get done and need just a single unified operations center, right? And they want to make sure that everything's preserved and protected. And sometimes it's people our age, and sometimes it's, people our age buying it for their parents saying, okay, I want to not have to face that big, ugly mess that happens if we don't do this ahead of time.
Yeah. And I would think that the younger generations, not my parents' generation, they're not as technical.
Sure.
And so that's not really your target audience.
I would say, the bulk of the people that we work with are somewhere between 50 and 70.
The baby boomers.
Yes.
That'd be me.
Yeah.
I'm the tail of the baby boomer.
Okay. All right. I was going to say, you got to be on the younger side of that.
Yeah. I'm on the tip of the tail.
The tip of the tail.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
flying off back to Gen X one of these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about the actual use of the product. Is there anything that you've learned since you've created this that you go, oh, we've added features. Yeah. Just like any innovations like that. Right.
Right. Well, when we first started it, our thinking was, okay, these are people that didn't grow up with technology. They're going to want kind of a step-by-step explanation of how to use it. And so we built this really nice wizard that it was like step 1, step 2. And what we found is everybody was clicking out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because
see, I like that step 1, step 2.
People of all ages now, they're very used to technology just working, right? And they don't want to have to read the instruction manual,
the tutorial,
right?
Yeah. Especially guys, they don't read instructions. They don't ask for directions, right? And they don't read instructions.
So we really shifted that and put in more of just like a pop-up tour, where it's like, the first time you pop in, it's like, hey, here's, one little thing to read. And if you want to click next, it'll kind of, jump around the screen and show you what each piece does. But you don't have to, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a big one for us. One of the other ones that we found is when we originally rolled it out, the plan was we didn't want people to, you talked about garbage in, garbage out. That's a really key piece that we tried to think about and brainstorm for from the outset. And so we didn't want people being able to add their own password vaults because we were concerned that they would put in the wrong information. They could misspell the URL. They could, accidentally grab the wrong password or username. But what we found is that people got confused about how, they would get into their dashboard and they'd be like, okay, now what? Well, okay, now you go to the websites you normally use and put in your username and password. It'll automatically save. They're like, well, no, I just want to do it right here. Can't we just do it right here? And so that was another piece that we recognized we had to make it so that people could manually create that.
Yeah.
If they want to. Like you said, like any innovation, you have to refine and iterate and figure out, okay, how are we going to make it the easiest possible tool and the most intuitive?
That's my favorite word when it comes to electronics, intuitiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing that, that I praise Apple for is their intuitiveness.
Absolutely.
They're the masters at that. And that's probably why I like their products, is not because I want to support Apple as much as I just want something that is intuitive.
You want it to work, and you want it to work the way you think it should work.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And certainly that's...
So did you dive into the minds of, did you do, focus groups and different things like that to find out how people's minds were working?
We've done so many customer interviews.
Yeah.
And continue to, right? We continue to refine. We continue to iterate and try to make it even more intuitive. And also start to look at what else about your digital legacy is going to be valuable to you, and how do we help you in the way that you want to be helped.
Yeah.
To make sure that your pictures, right, that again used to be in a box or a photo album or whatever. Today, for many of us, it's not that way anymore. Our photos are in the cloud and with very little physical photos, right? But the downside of that is that then you take how many digital photos?
Yeah. Well,
and trying to sort through those.
Well, that's where we just had a family meeting. And mom and dad, 91.
Yeah.
5 siblings. We all got together. And we started going through the photos from our childhood.
Yeah.
There's a couple of boxes, big boxes of slides. So we're in the process of sorting those out and then taking them to a company to digitize them. Will I be able to take all of those photos? And then we want to give each of the siblings their own copy of all the photos. So everybody's got, the same thing. Will I be able to store my photos? That kind of a...
You certainly could. You can upload any... It would. What we've found so far is most people have another site that they really like for their photos, and they'll just save their credentials for that site in Easeenet. Because that way then it's like a hub and spoke, right? We become the hub, and then they can go out to whatever site they need to or want to. But you certainly could upload photos, whatever else you want.
Yeah, it'd be nice though and then to be able to sort them, according to year or whatever.
There are some really nice tools out there that will, for photos, will identify who's in the photo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where it'll do some of that face recognition and automatic sorting and those kinds of things. So that's not something that we have the capacity to take on right now.
And that kind of takes you off of your mission.
Exactly.
Your main mission.
That's exactly it.
Nice little feature, however.
Let us refer you to someone who's already doing that, right? Again, going back to me being the Zentertainer, I'm not going to tell you to use us for something that we're not going to be the best experience for. Yeah. We're gonna say, hey, go.
So who have you found to be a good collator of all the photos?
Ooh, I will have to look it up. I actually did some due diligence on this a month ago, maybe not even that long, for someone else, and I found a really great one. So I will pull that up for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I've been looking at Legacy Box.
Okay.
And again, I don't know what's good out there. I just heard them on the radio sometime, and
right. Yeah. So I went digging. I was looking for something that did a lot of the things that you were talking about, and that I mentioned, being able to organize by, I'm like, well, it makes sense to leverage the technology that's out there. Let's, let's use the face recognition. Let's use the metadata if it's there, as far as, when was a photo taken, or, if you're scanning in photos, obviously the metadata is not going to be there, but for digital, native digital photos, there's so much information on the back end, that metadata around when it was taken, even where it was taken, all kinds of things. So
yeah, okay. Is there? Lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Oh, size. So storage size. How much storage can we? How many documents can we put in?
We haven't had anybody bump up against it yet.
Okay.
We have officially put a limit of a gig in there. But at some point down the line, we've talked about expanding our journaling feature that's in there to allow for audio or video journaling, at which point, obviously it would need to expand from a gig to bigger. But for documents and everything like that, we haven't had anybody have a problem yet. So
what are the legal implications?
Good question. So back in 2015, I believe it was, RUFADA got passed, and that's the federal act for digital assets. And then it's since been adopted by somewhere between 46 and 48 states. So almost all the states have adopted it at this point. And basically what it does is it sets up a hierarchy for who gets control over digital assets. and an online tool where you can decide who your legacy contact is put at the top of the hierarchy. And then next is if you designate a digital executor in your will or your power of attorney. And then the third one is your the terms of service for the website, which obviously you don't want to be the deciding factor for your digital assets, because by and large, they're going to tell you your option is to delete the account. Period.
Okay.
So, you want to have one of those upper two, either an online tool that you've designated to, give people your digital assets, and or a will or power of attorney that designates a digital executor. And we encourage our people to do both, right? Mm-hmm. Not only do you have Easeenet, but then in your will or power of attorney, make sure that it's clear that the legacy contact you put in Easeenet is also the person you designated as your digital executor. There's also, as far as legal side, there's the CFAA, which is the Computer Fraud blah, blah Act. I don't know what they all stand for. Yeah. But that one's interesting. It's been around for a long time. And the idea is, just trying to put some laws in place to make sure that people aren't misusing computer and digital access. And just last month, the Supreme Court gave a ruling on the CFAA, which really was a positive ruling, I think, because it greatly limited the scope of the CFAA. Because for a long time, people were worried, hey, if you share your Netflix password with someone, that it could be considered a crime. And it was really ambiguous. The CFAA was not clear. The legislation was just not clear about any of this. So to have this come down last month and really clarify, and it really was similar to, there was a federal judge that ruled last year on a case where it basically was saying that if you violate a website's terms of service, that's not necessarily a crime, right? So historically, the CFAA would kind of say, oh, well, if a website says that you did something that you weren't supposed to do according to their terms of service, we could classify that as a crime under CFAA. And now they've said, no, we're going to separate those two. The website still has the right to have their terms of service, but we're not necessarily going to say that's a crime.
Okay.
And the reason that's relevant, right, is because pretty much all terms of service say you can't share passwords. So it's like, okay, there's the legal side and there's the logical, practical side of like, okay, well, how do you manage things? How do you go in and close accounts? How do you get access to the information that you need?
If you can't share.
If you can't, right. If you yourself cannot let someone else go in and take care of what they need to. So, I mean, the law is, of course, always changing and, we're continuing to track it. But essentially at the end of the day, the nice part is that the Supreme Court seems to have agreed that it's like, okay, we get it. You have to be able to do what you need to do. And that's the same thing that Rafata created, right? It's like, okay, we get it. You have these digital assets that have a value and you have to be able to do what you need to do with them.
So when you came up with this idea, did you ever anticipate that it would go into so many details, like legal? And, I mean, you just want the end product, right?
My stepdad's an attorney, so...
Oh, okay.
I always assume everything is going to get into legal at some point. Yeah. But I've learned so much in the last 3 years, and that's been really fun.
Yeah. It's interesting how a simple idea can be so complicated to implement. Just because we live in such a litigious society, and there's so many legalities and protections, and which are all good.
Yeah.
But it complicates life.
It does, and I think a lot of people recognize there's that difference, that line between the spirit of the law and the word of the law, right? And trying to navigate that, and that discussion goes far beyond digital assets in so many other areas. But
Yeah. So really what you've created is a centralized folder filing cabinet, and you're giving me the opportunity to take and bring order into my world.
Yes.
By taking all these butterflies that are flying out of formation and not sure where they all are, and you're putting them under one roof. And that's, how much work is that? I mean, already I'm lazy and my ADD is already setting in.
Yeah. So we recommend the first day, do 3 things in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Set up your account, which is about 30 seconds. Download the browser extension to whatever browser you use.
So what are some of the browsers? We're talking Firefox.
Firefox, Chrome, Microsoft Edge. We've built the Safari one, but it's not quite approved by Apple yet because they want their dollars.
Yeah.
But that one should be out real soon. And so, yeah, pretty much any browser, any modern day browser.
The big ones you got.
So set up your account, download your browser extension, and choose your legacy contact, right? And then from there, it's kind of as
the
you
legacy,
get time.
Just one more time. The legacy contact is
the person who's going to receive this.
The benefit or it's going to manage it after I'm gone.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So if you set those 3 things up, then at that point you can just start using the internet like you normally do, and it's going to start prompting you to save this, right?
And you can have multiple. You can have multiple people as the legacy beneficiary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What was the term you again used?
Legacy contact.
Contact.
Yeah.
I call them legacy beneficiary.
Beneficiary is okay too. You'll still find it in your venue if you don't remember. You'll be like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. And some, if you assign somebody, they may go, well, there's not much benefit to managing all of the estates. So that's not.
You're like, how about
this
a benefit to me?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wise choice
executor,
words.
right? Which, it's got execute in.
Yeah. Yep.
You're talking about 570 hours of work on average that you're giving somebody. And so, taking a little bit of time to organize.
570?
Yeah.
Explain that.
That's the average to settle an estate is 570 hours.
To settle an estate.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot of hours.
It is a lot of hours.
Is that an average number?
That's an average number, although I will tell you, even very, very small estates, we're talking less than $25,000 in assets, are still close to 500 hours.
So by using Easeenet,
you're saving hours and hours and hours
at the end.
Yes.
From attorney fees, etc.
And, think about it. It's your family in the worst, this is kind of the worst time of their lives, right? Their loved one, their person just passed away or is in the hospital or whatever, right? Why would you want to add more stress and more frustration to that moment, to that part of their life? It's like, hey, take a little bit of time, because a lot of the stuff that's in the worksheet in our tool, which is designed to kind of capture the odds and ends that people just forget to pass on. It's stuff that right off the top of your head, right? It's your phone password, and it's your mother and father's place of birth, and things that your loved ones are going to need to know, but they probably don't know right off the top of their head in the same way that you do. So you take a few minutes now to just kind of capture those details, and it's saving them hours of scrambling and trying to look and, asking Aunt Sue, hey, do you know Mark's blah, 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 blah.
So the when it comes down to, getting that information out, are there templates? I mean, when you're putting the information in, are there templates that you guys have created for some of the documents, or are these documents that you're pulling from other templates? and you're putting them into the storage.
So your legacy worksheet is going to walk you through. There's, it's going to ask you a series of questions, and it's broken down by personal information and financial and health and end of life. And you can kind of plug away at it at your own pace. You can do it on your phone while you're watching Netflix or whatever, get a few things at a time. As far as the documents section, there are a number of lists out there of what documents you should have. And we do have some of them linked in our resources.
Some tutorials.
Yeah,
of,
exactly. And that's definitely something that Andrew, my co-founder, and I have talked about, spoon feeding even a little bit more, right? It's like, okay, let's make it, again, it goes back to how easy can we make this? How intuitive? How can we best possibly make it so that it doesn't feel like a huge chore? It just becomes part of the flow of your life, but then it saves countless hours for your loved ones afterwards.
Yeah. Are there any competing brands out there?
There are. We've named at least one password manager out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, forget about them.
But there's companies on the password manager side, and there's companies on the digital vault side.
Those two different functions.
They are two different functions. Yeah. And at least as far as today, we're the only company that brings both of those sides together in a single platform. And that was intentional on our part because we wanted to make it as easy as possible to kind of see everything in your life in a single interface. It's
kind of like you bringing peanut butter and chocolate together.
Exactly.
Is what you've done.
Who can be mad about that?
Yeah. No, not at all. How do you, and I know we talked about this a little bit already, but the protected, how do you make sure that everything's protected? Let's just go over that.
Sure.
That's a big
The security
topic.
Is absolutely number one
no
on everyone's
Russians
mind.
Can get in there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And
let's back up for a second, right? Because if you're not using a password manager today, I can with almost 100% certainty tell you that you are reusing passwords, which is so much higher risk than anything we could possibly do, really. Yeah. But again, we built security in from the get-go at our core. Everything is AES 256 encrypted end to end. It's never ever unencrypted, whether it's in transport or at rest. We have two-factor authentication. We have emails that go out if...
and this is bank-grade security.
Yes, exactly.
Exceeding the bank.
Military, all of these.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not target grade security.
Yeah, okay.
Or who are some of the other ones that have had the big hacks, right?
Aging Today.
Oh,
podcast. Yeah, Aging Today podcast. Our security is probably the Russians are after us.
Oh, I was more poking a little bit of fun at the companies that have had those hacks and everyone's information got out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost always because that when it was stored in the server to save money, they didn't want to store it encrypted. Because when you encrypt it, right, it takes up way, way more space. So they're like, well, the server itself is encrypted. It's fine. But, it's the next level when you say, okay, not only is the server going to be encrypted, but every piece of information in it is also going to be encrypted 100% of the time. So even if someone does hack in, what are they getting? They're getting a bunch of gobbledygook.
Yeah.
So.
And you're a software, right?
Yes.
And there's a server that puts it all together. Is that a server that you share with other companies?
No, it's not. Yeah. No, we haven't.
I don't know how that.
Yeah.
That's way above my pay grade.
That's okay. So,
I can't even believe I even had.
I'm impressed. No, I'm very impressed. So you look at the different hosting providers, right? AWS, Azure, DigitalOcean. You have the ability to either buy a shared server, which is what you're talking about, where you share that server with other, or you get your own server where it's dedicated to you, and we have a dedicated server, so there's no one else that has access to our server.
Actually, that was a really good question.
It was.
And
I'm impressed.
I mean, that actually gives me a lot more security.
Oh, good.
Knowing that it's going to be protected.
Yes.
That it's not shared with somebody else, some other product, whatever.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. What's going to happen to all those people that don't use digital estate?
That don't plan for their digital estate, they are sadly, I mean, I hear horror stories all the time from estate planning attorneys, from financial advisors, from everyone, right? The reality is...
What are some of the sad stories?
I could go on and on, but everything from there's just assets that disappeared and no one can find it, or they don't even know it exists. So I don't know if you know this, over $7 billion of life insurance is unclaimed.
$7 billion?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because either...
People forgot? Or somebody died and they didn't know that
they didn't know they had it, is almost always the biggest culprit there is... if you haven't stored it somewhere, right? Again, we live in a digital world.
Yeah.
All of your assets are effectively invisible if you don't create documentation around them.
Don't they have a financial responsibility?
There are absolutely some databases you can search, so if you want to play around on a Friday night or a Tuesday night or whatever, and go looking to see if you can find some unclaimed money, you can do that. But if you don't know that it's out there, how would you know to look?
Yeah.
Right?
What about the companies, like the insurance company?
How would they know that you even died?
Well, don't they do death certificates? They do?
Well, who's going to give you the death certificate? This is my point, right? You could die anywhere in our very, very large country. And companies are just not going to know necessarily. I mean, so you look at some of the big companies are starting to build algorithms because of all the things they know about you.
Yeah. Facebook
and Google and, Amazon, they want to know because they can actually lock you out of a bunch of your stuff if you're no longer around.
It's going to get scary.
It's rapidly getting scary. So, there's the unclaimed assets problem, but then there's also I heard this story, no one knew that Grandpa still had a loan on his car. And so and it was on paperless billing. So it went to his email that nobody was checking. And so 3 months later, you look out the door and there goes the repo man with Grandpa's car. Mm-hmm. Or the electricity gets shut off because it was on auto pay and someone turned off the credit card. This is all stuff that's no longer physically visible. We're not writing a physical check from our physical checkbook and mailing it and getting, the physical bill in the mail. These are just not things that typically occur anymore.
I don't even remember the last time I wrote a check.
Right.
I don't know if I know how anymore.
Let alone balancing your checkbook, right?
Oh, I gave up on that a long time ago.
You have a future podcast on how to balance a checkbook?
Yeah. We'll have to get somebody on for that one. Don't follow my lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even... it's really funny because I grew up in a generation where balancing the checkbook was very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now digitally, I'll look at
your online transactions.
I'll look at the transaction, but I won't balance it.
No, I don't think anybody does.
I wonder how many banks are making huge millions of dollars off of that. Because in fact, I got scammed by somebody out of San Francisco where they were using DoorDash.
Oh.
And I missed the transactions for 6 months. And they were just, they're small transactions.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be about $2,000 worth of transactions.
Oh my gosh.
Over 6 months.
Yeah.
So they don't even look at, I guess, boy, I got to start looking more at what's going on in the electronic bank even. On the credit card because... And fortunately, the credit card company reimbursed me.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad.
That's kind of cool.
That part is definitely wonderful. Yeah. But the invisibility of our assets it's already becoming a problem. Yeah. And so, even if your listeners don't use Easeenet, do something about your digital estate. Like make this happen, make this a priority because not only is it going to save you a bunch of time and energy and hassle, but it's going to save your family so much stress and frustration.
Absolutely.
So
Well, I'm definitely going to check it out. So
Thanks, Mark.
And the easy thing for me to do, play on
I
words.
did. I
You
caught
notice
that. Yep.
So I'm going to guess it's Easeenet.com.
Yeah, that is correct.
Man,
Yeah.
smarter than I look.
But it is spelled a little funny because we make your online life easy to see. That's how you can remember it. And it's
Okay.
EASEENET.com.
Okay. Sounds good. Easeenet.com. And is there anything else that you want to, we're at the end of the show. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you want to add on top of what did we miss anything?
So a very smart man, Benjamin Franklin, once said, a minute of organizing every minute of organizing saves an hour.
So true.
And so, I'm going to leave you with that and recognize that just taking a few minutes to organize what you have going on in your online world can save hours and hours.
Yeah.
So
Well said.
Thank you.
Well concluded. Easeenet.com. And it's EAS, like in Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing through the whole thing, right?
That's right.
EASEE net.com.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Erin, how would so if anybody listening and they want to get a hold of you, is it through the internet or can they call you or?
Sure.
What's your number?
503-793-3888.
Because I was like, I'd rather talk to people.
Yeah. I am
Rather than-
happy to take the calls.
I'm from the old school. What can I tell you? All right. Sounds great. Wonderful product.
Thank you.
Highly encourage all of our listening audience to go out there and check it out, easeenet.com, and catch up to the real world. Be protected. We got to be safe out there.
Yes.
And everything is well protected. It's encrypted, and then it's just basic organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting to that organization, though, it's going to take a little bit of your time.
It can take a little bit of your time. That's true. Yeah. And we do have an option. We have a partnership with a company called Tech Trainer if you want one-on-one help with that as well. And it's real reasonable. So.
All right. Well, we've been
Mark.
talking to Erin McCune, and she is the co-founder to Easeenet.com. And what we've been talking about is remember what matters, easy digital estate planning. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
And I also want to thank our show sponsor, Comfort Care Home Care of West Lynn, Oregon. The Comfort Care team at West Lynn is devoted to assisting you to live your best life possible. This is Mark Turnbull, your host. Thank you for tuning in to Aging Today, the podcast where together we explore together the options to aging on your terms. Join us again next week for another lively discussion on aging today. And our special guest next week will be, well, you know them from the past. It's Nancy and Lawrence. We're going to continue our conversation about genealogy. And the company that Nancy is a part of is Juggling Feathers. Remember, we're all in the process of aging. And as we age, we really are better together. So stay young at heart.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel like spring has sprung. And every time I see your face, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to go play hide and seek. I want to go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. Well, you and I are just like a couple of tots running across the meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. So you made me feel so young. You made me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be fun. And even when I'm old and gray.
You've been listening to Aging Today, where together we explore the options to aging on your terms. Join Mark and his guest next week for another lively discussion on proactively aging on your terms, connecting you to the professional advice of his special guests, with the goal of creating better days throughout the aging process. Your host has been Mark Turnbull. Join Mark and his guests every week on Aging Today, your podcast to exploring your options for aging on your terms.
And even when I'm old and gray, you make me feel the way I feel today. 'Cause you make me feel so. You make me feel so. You make me feel so young. So young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so young.